everybody. Welcome back to Challenge the Call with Max and Avery. I'm your host, Max.
And I am Avery. How are you guys?
All right, so we have a little bit of an update to give you guys on the podcast. This will be our last official episode for this season. We're going to take a little bit of a break, just 3-4 weeks off or so. We'll give you a couple episodes over the course of the summer, kind of June and July. But other than that, I'm starting an internship at Iowa, and it's just the summer, so we're just going to take a little time off to kind of get everything right in together.
Yeah, and I think that's a smart move. I think, during the summer months, we are a football podcast, and I really think, this atmosphere with a football podcast, we love talking basketball, we love talking baseball, but at the end of the day, we're a football-oriented podcast. So I think, NFL's off for the summer. I mean, yeah, you got OTAs. We're going to be kind of off for the summer. Limited time off for the summer.
Yep, but with that being said, we will get right into today's episode. Hopefully we give you guys a good one for our last little hoorah here. But we will start off with Cubs Corner. Avery, go ahead and take it.
The Chicago Cubs, they are 22-27. We are third place in the NL Central, 11th in the National League right now. So we've dropped off by a lot. Kyle Hendricks is back pitching for the Chicago Cubs. So we got our star pitcher back, which thank God, because we need pitching help, especially. This is why we're losing a lot of these games, because the bats, they're going. We got the bats going. It's just our defense is terrible right now. And so, with Kyle Hendricks coming back, I think that will help us tremendously with that.
He was one of the pitchers when we won the World Series, right? So
yep. Yeah.
Hopefully he will kind of make – I mean, we did go from being fourth in the Central back to being up in thirds. He's only been back one game, I think, and we lost that game. But so that made a difference.
Yeah, which is fine. And, with baseball, guys, we were still 49 games in. We still got 111 games to go. And, the interesting with us, taking a break and not recording until the end of June, when we come back, you'll actually see more of a change in the Cubs record instead of just a 4 or 5 game stretch. Definitely. So that'll be exciting.
We've got a lot of Cubs baseball left, but we do not have a lot of Iowa baseball left. So we'll go into our black and gold breakdown here. Iowa baseball. Third in the country. We have not been paying much attention. I have watched a couple games, actually. I don't know why we haven't talked about it specifically on the pod, but I've caught a couple games. I knew we were doing pretty good, but I didn't realize we were third in the country good right now.
Yeah, no, we've been balling out for college baseball, and that's awesome to see. So a couple games ago against Michigan, we 10-run Michigan. And they were actually a higher seed before that. That was on May 23rd. And then we beat Indiana with ease in the Big Ten Championship. Not the Big Ten Championship. The Big Ten Championship will be coming up this Saturday. And it'll either be Indiana or Michigan. College baseball is a little weird. It's formatted differently. But this Saturday in Omaha, Nebraska, it's make or break for the Iowa Hawkeyes. If they end up making it into the College World Series tournament. And if they do, that's big news for me, because guess what? I live in Omaha, Nebraska. Mm-hmm. I will be definitely, and I'll say it right here on the podcast, expect stuff on our Instagram, because I will be going to one of the games. If they win tomorrow, I will be going to one of the games that Iowa is playing. So I'll be decked out in black and gold at the field in Omaha. I couldn't remember the name right now, but yeah, I'll be decked out in black and gold.
Are you going to get the face paint? Are you going to go half black, half gold?
No, I'll just roll with my Hawkeyes gear and take Liam to his very first baseball game.
There you go.
So he can roast like a peanut out in the sun. But yeah, it'll be a fun time. I really hope we can continue. Don't let Iowa get hot. I know that's what a lot of people have been saying. And I just want to shout out Iowa sports real quick before we move on. Girls basketball, we were in the Big Ten Championship 2 years ago for football. Girls basketball national champions, the Iowa Hawkeye boys baseball team are rocking it right now. We had a national champion wrestler. A lot of big things are coming out of Iowa right now, and I just want to keep this continuing.
Definitely. I love seeing Iowa not be a single sports program. We're not Georgia football team. We're not a UConn basketball team, or school, I should say. We got a little bit of everything. Successful football, successful men's and women's basketball, very successful wrestling. Baseball's going off right now. I think softball didn't do too bad this season either. I just love the athletic atmosphere so far at Iowa. Is successful all around. So that's super cool to see. But we'll move on to our next segment. What the puck? A little bit of a hockey update. The Florida Panthers did sweep the South Carolina Hurricanes 4-0 in their series. So Panthers will be moving on to the Stanley Cup Finals. The Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights, however, the Dallas Stars managed to pull off Game 4, and they won it 3-2. So they are going to play again, I think, tomorrow night. Questionably for the last time, questionably could continue. We don't know, and we will find out.
For sure.
I'm not watching any games.
Yeah, hockey sucks. No, I'm kidding. For our hockey fans out there, I'm sorry about that. But what the puck? Why? What the puck? I hate hockey. But anyways, no.
We will be better next year. Next year, I will follow the Colorado Avalanche harder, and I will attempt to watch more hockey games in general. So, we'll be right there.
I promise I'll watch one St. Louis Blues game all of next year. Deal?
Deal.
All right. But yeah, that's hockey segment.
Yep. Moving on into something we're a little more versed in right now, Beyond the Arc, NBA playoff update. The Denver Nuggets swept the Lakers 4-0. That's crazy. I got a whole slew of stuff to go through about this game. I watched it. I was very excited. Jokic, I think that's how you say his name. I'm not 100% sure. But Jokic broke the record for the most triple-doubles in a single postseason. The record was previously set in 1967. So this has been a real long-time held record. And Nikola Jokic just came in and was like, nah, that shit's mine.
For sure. Nikola Jokic is one of the best players in this game right now. And it's just really cool to see him do these big things. You haven't really seen this from an off-brand guy. I mean, Giannis was the last one before he got his name more prevalent when the Bucks won the championship. But yeah, Jokic is doing unseen stuff, and that's really awesome to see.
Definitely, I am all about it. I love seeing this. This is the first time Denver has ever won the West. So, Yeah, I said that correctly. The first time they've ever won the West, first time they'll be going to the NBA Finals. So this is huge for the entire franchise in general. This is super awesome.
For sure. And I wanted to mention one thing with the Nuggets going in Jokic is that sweeping LeBron James. I know the Lakers, they were a 7 seed and everything like that, but it's still LeBron James and it's still the LA Lakers. And to see the Nuggets as a team that is I'm just going to say it how it is. They've been known as a loser in the NBA for years. And so seeing a loser like that come out victorious against a historic franchise as the LA Lakers, it's pretty awesome to see. And you can't really name anybody but Carmelo Anthony on the Nuggets that have ever been that good for the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah,
and
definitely. Even the team they have right now is none of them were, MVPs or players of the years or all-star, anything like that. This team is completely just underrated and is the only team in the Western Conference to have swept somebody in this playoff series,
which is crazy,
in this playoff season.
And one other thing, how do you let two legends like Jokic and Carmelo Anthony both wear number 15 for the same franchise? Because now with Carmelo Anthony retiring the same day the Lakers got swept, who's the better 15 for the Nuggets? When you go and think of a Denver Nugget and you think of number 15, do you think of Carmelo Anthony that did so much prior for the franchise? Or do you think of Jokic that's doing so much right now? It's crazy.
I personally think of Jokic who's doing so much right now because this is the first year I've watched NBA. So, but
I'm talking about long-time fans.
Yeah, for sure.
Which one do you think of? That's crazy to me.
For sure. One other thing I did want to mention, I know we're talking about LeBron a little bit and stuff. Did you see the pass he made that went into the basket? He was out beyond the 3-point line, and he goes to alley-oop somebody or pass it in, and the shit just drained right. I was I was pissed. I was kind of upset. I was like, what
It
the
was so easy too. It was with ease. It looked
right?
so like effortless,
I was
which is
like,
insane.
how does that happen? Like, how do you just whoop and like, oh shit, 3 points. All right, let's go. Jokic did do a similar thing though. Yeah, he was actually attempting to shoot it, but the shot clock was winding down on him, and he was kind of falling back and just yucked it up, and it did go in too. So I liked seeing both of those happen. Just in my head, that little comparison between like, all right, like LeBron James versus Jokic. Jokic came out on top of this battle. So I like seeing that. I am not a LeBron fan. I will respect that he's a very, very good basketball player, but I am not a fan.
La swept, you mean?
Yeah, yeah, it's a little swept.
La swept. Oh,
But on the Eastern side of things here, we have the Heat versus the Celtics. Surprisingly enough, the Celtics are actually starting to find their footing against the Heat. I don't know if the Heat is like tired, if they're getting run down, if they've been playing longer than they can handle now, but they're now leading the series still, but they're 3-2. So they went from 3-0 to having given up 2 games. And if they don't win this game 6 that they're about to play, I think they're in deep, deep trouble.
oh yeah, for sure. Like the Heat got to close out this series right now. You can't let Boston all the way back in. And just the amount of turnovers that they've had throughout, like the last 2 games, is insane.
Yep.
And
Game 5, they had 17 turnovers. 6 of those came in the first quarter.
that is insane to me. That is insane to me. Well, and I'm going to highlight 2 or 3 players that have not been there, not been present the last 2 games. Okay, where's Kevin Love? Because he was a great role player the first 3. First 3 games, he's a great role player. Jimmy Butler, he's been there, but he can't do it all. And Gabe Vincent's been okay. Like, he's been actually keeping them alive. So, like, I'm just trying to figure out who needs to step up to put the Heat over the edge on the Boston Celtics. Because them being up 3-0 at one point, it was insane. And maybe they got too full of themselves.
Yeah, game 4 definitely was a real close battle. I remember thinking the same thing. I was like, all right, the Nuggets were, I think, down to the Lakers like the first half of that game. Third quarter, went back up, ended up sweeping them. Great, cool. Let's see it happen again. And I think the exact opposite happened. I think the Heat were actually up for a good part of the first half. And I was kind of like, okay, like it's a close game, but the team that's winning 3-0 in the series is up a little bit. Like, is that really close? Yeah, it is, especially since they ended up losing that game. But it was a really close, good battle. Game 5 looked horrible. Like game 5 looked like the Heat should have never been there, never been even considered. Like how did this team make it this far? Game 5 did not look pretty at all. And they scored less than 100 points in both of those games. Game 4 and game 5, their scoring was down. They scored 99 and 97. That's not how you win games in the NBA.
No, not at all. And you got to think, like, you go back to what you said originally. Do you think the Heat are tired? Because they've been in this playoff since the play-in game. Like, and they've had to play so many games just to get to this point. And Jimmy Butler's carried them. And, you know, you can't get down to the Boston Celtics after halftime. They're 64-2 in the playoffs if they're leading by 10 and after half. You can't do what the Heat have done in every single series with the Boston Celtics, because the Boston Celtics, they know how to shut out games. And this is just where we're at. So, one, Jason Tatum's starting to come alive, which is good. Which that is what the Boston Celtics. Well, he's up and down.
Define what you want to say is good, because I personally think I'd rather see the Nuggets playing the Heat in the finals. So
okay, I'm still bitter about the sweep of the Bucks, or not the sweep, but they won in 5. I'm still bitter, but at the same time, like, I don't know. Throughout games, like, I've noticed watching the Heat versus Celtics series, there's one game that I'm like, okay, I want Boston to win this. I want them to pull it off. And then there's another game I'm like, well, it'd be cool if an 8 seed went to the championship. For basketball, it would be great. For basketball, it would be great if Miami went to the championship. That's a true underdog story.
I'm just watching for the sake of, okay, who's going to play the Nuggets now? I want the Nuggets to have the best chance they have to win it all. And watching that game 5, I undoubtedly was like, oh my God, I want to play the Heat so bad. Like, I want to go fuck up the Heat right now because they
I
look
guess you
awful.
said, yeah,
But
you said you were a Nuggets fan. I forgot about that. Technically, I mean,
team
that's your
number 2.
second team. Yeah.
Mhm.
That makes sense now because I don't have a dog in the fight. So I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know who I want. I guess if the Nuggets play the Heat, I'll cheer for the Nuggets. But if the Nuggets play the Celtics, something about Boston. I like the Celtics. So I don't know.
There,
I might be
there is
pulling for Boston.
there is something about Boston that kind of makes you very interested or enticed into that team. Well, like I said, if I had to pick like a team number 3, it probably would be the Celtics for whatever
Yeah.
random. I can't even explain that one. It's just how it is. I don't know why. I don't understand it, but the Celtics just have this weird pull. And I think that's another reason, like, I don't want the Nuggets to play them, is because that would make a little bit more of a conflict for me. Like, I'd rather the Heat move on. I'd rather watch Denver play the Heat and fully support Denver, pushing past that. But we will see what happens. Maybe tomorrow night, maybe in Game 6 or Game 7.
Game 7. Yeah, if they win tomorrow night, it'll be a Game 7, and that is terrifying to me. That is terrifying because, like, I mean, like, it depends how you look at it because I do like the underdog story. So I do want Jimmy Butler just to pull it off right now and just call it good. I like Jimmy Butler, even though he hit a last-second shot against the Bucks that I'm not going to talk about. But I do like Jimmy Butler. Like, he's been bounced around. He went from the Bulls to the Sixers to the Heat. Something about Jimmy Butler and him, like how he plays in the playoffs, is just phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, and we're officially in position that I think we mentioned it last week. There's a player on all 3 of these teams that are kind of in the running right now that are fighting for that first ring. Mm-hmm. Jokic is working for that first NBA championship ring. Tatum is working for that NBA ring, and Jimmy Butler is also working for that ring. So all 3 of these teams right now, are fighting for first.
Well, and you got to think, though, who's the oldest out of all 3 of those players? It's Jimmy Butler. He's 33 years old, and he hasn't gotten a ring. 33 in the NBA, that's old. That's a seasoned vet, and like Jokic is 24 or 25. So like they got years to get a ring. I feel, but you got to think, Jimmy Butler was part of those good Chicago Bulls teams back in the day, and people thought Jimmy Butler would have a chance. Years later, well, he does. 10 years later, 9 years later. So I get where you're coming from. Like each player, but still.
And I get what you're saying too. Like, oh, he's so much older with no ring. Like, yeah. So does he have to have one? Like, if he's been in this long and hasn't gotten a ring yet, what does that say about him? Like Jokic 24 maybe gets a ring. Like, okay, yeah, he's a really fucking good player. Like LeBron has 7 of these shits or 6 of these shits just laying around somewhere, like to a degree, I get what you're saying with the age thing. Like, man, they've been in for so long. How do they not have one? Well, maybe because they're just not to take anything away from him at all, but
he dropped 56 points 2 games ago. You can't say that he's not that guy because he is that guy.
Okay, where's his ring?
This year, the Nuggets. No, I don't know. I want to keep going on this a little bit. I want to compare Jimmy Butler to an NFL player real quick. Great in the playoffs, rolls around and just like an unheralded guy. Nick Foles, right? Nick Foles, 100%. Is Jimmy Butler the NBA equivalent to Nick Foles or Eli Manning?
Nick Foles does have a ring.
That's what I'm saying. This is Jimmy Butler's year to get a ring. Nick Foles was older when he got a ring. Nick Foles was older. Here's the
one thing I will say about that comparison, though, is when you're talking football versus basketball, while a quarterback is a more ideal position to control the game for a team, a quarterback can't win a football game. In the sense that, they have to have good line, good receivers, good running, good defense. Like, they need other players around them for support. So it's not necessarily always going to be a quarterback's fault if they can't make it to that next step. I hate to say it, but a maybe decent example, Aaron Rodgers. I think he's definitely a ring-deserving quarterback. He is a ring-caliber quarterback, but maybe does not have the best team around him to get there, or so he likes to tell you. But in basketball...
that was good. That was a good shot.
But in basketball, one player can do that. Like, yeah, they need a little bit of help from other guys, but like, look at LeBron. LeBron
Giannis,
doesn't have 6
2021.
rings. Yeah, he doesn't have 6 rings because of his team. He had 6 rings because he went out and he got 6 rings. Like, basketball is so much easier to kind of carry a team and like push past that barrier of being, champions versus not. Whereas football, it really, really takes a lot of unison. Not that basketball doesn't. I just think that basketball is easier to have one absolute stud, and it helps you a lot more than having one absolute stud in football.
Yes and no with LeBron, because if you think back to those teams that he won championships with, Kyrie Irving, Dwayne Wade, like there have been another superstar on all these teams. I think LeBron's most impressive season has been this year. I hate to say it. He doesn't have another, Anthony Davis, but I don't think Anthony Davis was that good. He's not that guy. I think Austin Reeves was better than Anthony Davis most times in this last 2 playoff series. So I really think, like LeBron, with you saying like he can control the pace, well, I think Jimmy Butler's done more with less. And that's where I'm
fair. Which is fair. Like I said, it still takes teamwork. It still takes something out. But like making the football comparison, like, okay, let's say you have a Joe Burrow and you have a Chase Claypool, or not Chase Claypool, Jamar Chase. Wow.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a Joe Burrow and a Jamar Chase. Now let's put them behind the Texans O-line and let's give them fucking, I don't even know, a bad running back. Let's put them with some nobody running back or some shit. Like, 2 is not enough. Yeah, LeBron maybe had some help from another guy, but like, you know what I mean? Footballs, there's just so many different positions. And that's on offense. That's just on offense. What if the defense gave up a touchdown every single time, but you had the like best offense out there? You can't outpace scoring percent. At that point, it's just a who has the ball last situation if your defense can't stop them a single time. That's the difference I'm getting at, like that football, basketball difference. Like, I mean, shit, even saying it right there, offense and defense. Those are 2 different units in football.
Yeah.
In basketball, like the
Same.
guy on the court is the guy on the court. Like offense, defense, back and forth, like he is there.
For sure. I totally get that comparison there. So one thing I did want before we move on, like we were talking about LeBron and we're talking about the Lakers and the Nuggets. Did LeBron retire? His press conference. I don't know if you listened to his press conference or not. He said, I'm too old to celebrate just making it to the Eastern Conference Final or the Western Conference Final. This wasn't a successful season for me. And he's like, I don't know what the future has, but I can tell you I don't want to be 39 years old and not making it to the championship. A lot of people are saying that was a retirement speech. A lot of people are saying that's him going to sit out next year to wait 1 year to play with Bronny. And a lot of people are saying, no, he'll be back next year like normal. And that wasn't word for word what he said, but there was a little bit more of a connotation leading towards retirement. So I get where people are speculating, but I don't know. Like, I could see him sitting out.
I could questionably see him sitting out and waiting for Bronny. He's not retiring. He wants to play with Bronny. He wants to go in and play with his son.
Yep.
I don't know if I was listening to another podcast and they were kind of talking about this as well. They were talking about if he's the kind of guy that will be able to be on a team without being like the absolute star, like if he does play with Bronny, is he going to be the kind of guy that's going to play 10 minutes a game and like be chill with it as long as he's like on the team with his son? Or can he not handle that? Will he have to be the star and or like he's out regardless? Yeah. That's an interesting dynamic. I think we'll have to wait and see. Because from the sounds of this, no, he's not that guy. From the sounds of that makes it sound like if I'm not on the court for how many minutes are in a game, like 40 minutes a game or some shit, like I'm leaving.
Well, for sure. And like the way I look at that speech and like what he said, one, we all know LeBron. Like we know, like, and that's the one thing I respect out of you is you hate to lose. Like we get that. You're a perennial winner. Like you do this. Like you're like your competitive spirit. That's amazing. That's incredible. But like you said, can he be that guy that comes and plays 10 to 15 minutes a game as a role player, not a starter, as a role player, and contribute without having too big of an ego? because as he gets older, if he sits out a year, he's not going to play 40 minutes. He's going to be a year away from basketball. I could say maybe 20, maybe 25. Maybe like if someone gets hurt, he could play a 5-7 game stretch as a starter. But I don't see him being that guy like he was, because every age gets everybody.
Especially sitting out a year, like, dude, especially at your age, you're not sitting out a year. You're not sitting out a year and going back. You're going to lose so much. You, at the very minimum, you got to stay in it. You know what I mean? Like, you got to stay. You got to go through the workouts. You got to go through the practice. You got to,
but
keep
in
your
that
body right.
more damage and knees, like your knees.
I mean, you don't have to do it all. I mean, arguably, this is kind of how we've talked about with this season and the regular season with him as well. But you don't have to go all out and like blow yourself out per se. But use it or lose it is the one key thing. Like, if he doesn't use it, if he's not playing basketball, working out, like if he's not keeping in the game, keeping it right, he's gonna lose it. Especially at his age, like the longer you wait, like you'll lose a lot that you might not be able to recover as well. To me, what he said right there, I don't know if this is actually true or not, but just basing it off of what I understand from LeBron and how you told me that really, really sounds like he's saying, hey, someone pick me up that's going to fucking win.
That's true.
I don't think that's him saying, I'm retiring. If the Lakers do, he don't give a fuck about the Lakers. Like he'll go to whatever team's going to win. To me, that's him saying, hey, like teams that are going to win, pick me up. Let's go win this.
Okay, I want your honest opinion here. You're a Kings and Nuggets fan. LeBron says, I want to play for the Kings. I want to play for the Nuggets. What's your take on him joining? Because let's be honest, he's still great. Like he's still a good player. I wouldn't say he's great, but he's good.
It's ego and it's attitude. Like I don't want that guy on my team. I mean, like look at his reaction and Giannis's reaction to the was this a successful season? Giannis was out in round 1. And what was it he said? He was just like, hey, it's basketball. Like, we'll be back. We're playing. We're cool. LeBron's like, this was not a successful season. We only made it to the fucking West Championship. Like, dude.
I'm so glad you brought up both comparisons, because I actually would take LeBron's response every day of the week. That's a guy that wants to win. That was my biggest bone to pick with Giannis Antetokounmpo. I love Giannis Antetokounmpo. But when he said, it's just basketball, a little part of me put a doubt in my head. He's not there to win. He's just there because he loves basketball, which is fine. But I want competitive spirit. I want competitiveness on my star player. I want the hunger of wanting to win another championship. And I actually respect the hell out of what LeBron said. I'm 38 years old. I didn't come here to lose in the Western Conference Final. I love that. That's like, this guy wants to go all the way every single time. Giannis, on the other hand, says, it's okay to lose in the first round. Fuck you, Giannis. No, it's not.
Okay. He didn't say it's okay to lose in the first round. See, we had a really big argument about this around our spring game at work. A lot of the offensive and the defensive coaches were arguing about competitiveness, wanting to win, etc. A couple of us offensive coaches were kind of like, we don't care if we win the spring. Like we said, we don't care if we win the spring game. And our defensive coaches are going on like, what? Like, you don't care? Oh, you don't care about winning? Like, oh, so you're not trying. Like, there is a huge fundamental difference between being competitive, trying your hardest to win, but at the end of the day, being able to go to bed and let it go. In my head, when I say I don't care about winning this, or like this was a successful season, we made the playoffs, I'm looking back to the things we did right. Can we do things better? Can we go further? Yes, of course. But I am not going to be pissed off and unhappy and hate my life because we didn't make it to the very, very last possible thing. You know how many people make it to the very, very end? One. It is not going to be you every single year. You have to be able to acknowledge the fact that you tried your absolute hardest, you got to where you got, and, don't let it bring you down a ton. You know what I mean?
I do get that 100%, but at the same time, why do you play that game? Why are you a professional athlete? You got to
Because
come back.
you get paid millions of dollars to play
Okay,
your favorite game.
I get that. But what is the goal of every single team? Even if they know they won't make it, what is every single coach going to say? It's
They
to win
want
a
a ring.
championship. They want a ring. They want a ring. Every coach, every player should have that same prerogative.
And
So
Giannis in that interview did not one time say, "No, I don't want a ring." Of course he fucking wants a
got a
ring.
ring. He's already got a ring.
You understand what I'm saying, though.
I do
At
get
no
what you're saying.
point, at no point did he say like, "Oh, yeah, I'm so glad like we went out in the first round," or what. Like that is not at all what he is saying. He is saying that he had a successful season. He's looking back on the success that you guys had. Could you have gone further? Sure. But he is not going to be a negative Nancy. He's not going to be a downer. He is not going to put the team down.
And LeBron's not being a negative Nancy. He's just saying he's not 38 years old to lose in the Western Conference Finals. I get where he's coming from. I understand that. He is old as hell. I get it. He's 38 years old. You know how much bad knees he's probably got? You go into every single season, whether it's the NFL, there's 31 losers and one winner. You go into the NBA, there's 29 losers and one winner. Baseball, 29 losers and one winner. You play every single sport to be that one winner. And that is all I'm going to say about the rest of this topic.
You do. You play every single sport to be that one winner. You do. But then when ultimately you aren't the winner, you have two options. Reflect on it, keep in a positive state. Yeah, you can have a hunger for next season. You can have a hunger and want to come back bigger and better next season. But I think there's a very, very fine line between having that hunger and being a fucking douche. Very fine line.
You are right. But sometimes you got to be a douche when you're hungry. And a little bit. You got to have that cockiness. You have because I feel like cockiness brings out a little more like motivation in you when you are cocky in that.
Like it's that fine line though. It's because like we said, even it's that fine line between like, yeah, you got to be a little cocky. Sometimes you got to be a little selfish. Like if you're the guy. For any of you that watch Ted Lasso, this is actually like, I think season 1 follows perfect with Jamie Tart. Like he's a little prick, and then they teach him how to not be a little prick. But then they're like, hey, you actually need to be a little bit of a prick because we need to start winning this shit. Like I get that. There's a little bit of a cockiness factor to it. But at the same time, that can turn real quick into I'm a detriment to this team because I'm egotistical. I am putting everybody else down. Like that goes from that little bit of cockiness to succeed to I am absolutely like just demolishing this team's attitude, spirit, morale, like all over. So it's really hard to find that right balance of just like, hey, I'm the shit, but like I respect you.
It is. You're right, 100%. But at the same time, I still think I respect what LeBron said.
I don't hate what he said, especially depending on how he said it. Like I just kind of heard what you're telling me. And he didn't say anything overly agree. It reminds me so much of Aaron Rodgers. I think this is a part of the thing. I am correlating this with how Rodgers is always like, it seems like a very, very, like I said, he's not saying he's going to retire. He's saying, I want a different team. And so in my head, I'm thinking of this like Rodgers, and he's like, oh, like we should have won the Super Bowl if I was playing with a good receiver, with a good line, with a good bet. Like, okay, dude, yeah, your whole team is the problem, and it has nothing to do with you. That's how I correlated like this statement. For sure. The way you said it, at least. So that's where my mind is going when I'm thinking about this, is that he's like, well, like I'm not the one who lost the Western Championship. Like I'm too old to be playing and not win it all. You know?
I don't know. I see it the other way, but to each their own.
Who knows what he was actually trying to say? Maybe he will tell us at some
point. Very cryptic.
But all right, we will get into the main thing we came here to talk about today. This was actually, we went a lot longer than I expected without doing what we actually got here to do. So we are going to get into a little bit of football with Bear necessities. All right, so we're going to recap the Bears draft that they had. I know we already talked about our first round draft pick a little bit, but we're going to touch on it again just because. As we all know, the Bears in the first round with pick number 10, because they traded with the Eagles, took Darnell Wright, offensive tackle out of Tennessee. He was first team all SEC in 2022, his senior year, or technically his junior year. He elected to go into the draft after his junior year. But we talked a little bit about this already, I know, but Avery, what do you think about this pick?
No, we've already talked about like how I was pissed initially because like you had Northwestern, Skornsky, Peter, out of Northwestern, and then you also had a couple other guys that Broderick Jones out of Georgia, and you had options there. And Darnell Wright, yeah, of course, he was a first round projection, but he was middle to late first round projection, actually projected to go to Pittsburgh. But Ryan Poles is a former offensive lineman in the NFL. He was only in the NFL for a year or two, but he's got to know what it's like to discover talent on the offensive line side. And so I'm okay with this pick. I'm actually very excited because like a lot of the stuff I've seen from him, he's very already like bear oriented, if that makes sense.
I'm also pretty excited about this pick. Same as you, I was a little disapproving at first. Like, what about Skornsky? What about, the things we talked about beforehand? But I don't know. I think it's a good pick. I watched his highlights and stuff too. He's a big boy. He is still somewhat mobile from what I could tell. I remember watching Peter Skornsky's highlights and seeing the man just pulling all day long. And I don't know if it's like an MO thing, like if that's just the way that Northwestern plays versus Tennessee, or if Wright just isn't as good of a puller. But I did see a couple of pulling / like screen highlights from him, so he can move. I think he's bigger than Skornsky is, and I think he's going to be a little bit of that big, nasty O-lineman that we kind of need. So I approve of it.
For sure. And like you brought up Skornsky and you brought up his pulling. A lot of NFL scouts were projecting Skornsky to move to guard at the NFL level. Darnell Wright's a true tackle, and I like that. He is the true definition of a left or right tackle. Skornsky, he's kind of that hybrid. Okay, you could play guard, you could play tackle. We experienced that a lot with Riley Reif this year, and it didn't work out necessarily as well as we would like. So, like, I like going to get that true tackle. A lot of people compare Darnell Wright to Jason Peters. And Jason Peters has been a long time all-pro left tackle in the NFL. So if he could live up to that caliber and live up to that hype, we could see a lot of big things. And it just helps out our offensive line, because like if we would have went with Skornsky, like we already got a couple of guards. Like if he wouldn't have turned out, like we got Cody Whitehair that can play guard. We got we got Nate Davis from Tennessee Titans. Like we do have that guard position pretty much locked down. We needed to go get that true tackle.
Definitely. And I'm in full support of that. I know they're always considered all the same thing, like, oh, he's an O lineman, like he's an offensive lineman, like that is the position. No, offensive tackle, offensive guard, two different positions, two different techniques, two different like bits of knowledge that they have to utilize when playing the game. Like that's two whole different things. If you have kind of a hybrid guy, especially that new, that young, without a lot of older leadership above him, that can get dicey, like that's a lot to learn. Learning one position, tackle or guard, like that's enough in and of itself to take up your time, put 100% of your focus into, and get really, really good at just being a tackle. So I'm with it. I support it. I'm really excited to see what he does with the Bears. He was our only pick, I think, that was actually a first team all conference guy. So, I mean, which kind of makes sense, round one, first guy overall, like, yeah, it's going to happen.
You got to think also with that being said, you got to remember he locked down Will Anderson. He locked down Jalen Carter. Like these big name defensive players that went in the top 10, top 15, he locked these guys down like a glove. Like nobody could get out of his grasp. He had probably his best game against the Georgia Bulldogs. And like that right there shows it all. Like big players show up in big games. And Darnell Wright, he showed up.
And you guys are going to hear a lot of me throughout this Bears draft talk about stereotypes a little bit, I suppose. FBS, FCS, Power 5, SEC, Pac-12. Like you're going to hear a lot of kind of just generalities out of me. But when I say first team all conference, like, yeah, that's first team all conference. First team all SEC. Like that carries a lot more weight just in my head than, like, okay, he's first team all Big 12. Cool.
True. Yeah.
Who's in the Big 12,
Yeah.
But like you're saying, first team all conference SEC going against Georgia, Alabama, like those big nasty lines, like, Florida. Yeah, he's going to be awesome for us. Getting into our next guy that we picked, also an SEC guy, we have Jervon Dexter Sr., defensive lineman out of Florida. Um, I don't know. He doesn't have any all conference accolades that I can speak to. He did play as a true freshman. He played 12 games, started 2 of them. One thing I did think was interesting about him is he actually has 2 interceptions on his career as a defensive lineman. So,
which that's incredible just in itself. That's a task. No, I like Gervin Dexter. Like, I really like this pick. And the reason I like this pick is, one, we passed on Jalen Carter. We got Darnell Wright, right? We needed to get a D tackle. That was one of our number one needs. There were probably better guys that would come into the league right now, but Gervin Dexter has so much potential under him. Like, that the potential is unheard of. And I know Ryan Poles was going for that stat alone. He's 6'6", 322 pounds.
another big boy.
He came out as a redshirt sophomore. He's only 21 years old. Like, this kid is young. He's young. He's going to learn on our defensive side of the ball. Matt Eberflus is a defensive head coach. Yeah, he didn't have as much production, but you don't get that much production as a defensive tackle. Because at Florida, he wasn't a 3-4. He was a true nose tackle at Florida. So he has 4.5 sacks within 2 years. That's not much, but, the production and the possibilities of Gervin Dexter, that's where it really lies.
Definitely. And watching the highlights, watching highlights will change my mind a decent amount. Granted, you have to take it with a grain of salt sometimes because those are highlights. They're made to look really good. But still, another thing to look for too is like the length of highlights. Some of these guys have like a minute-long highlight clip. Some of these guys have like a 5-minute-long highlight clip. Those are different kinds of guys. But in his highlights, he looked big. He looked nasty. He got to the ball. He knew where he needed to go. I think he'll be good for us. I'm a little wary without the accolade. I gotta say, I don't know. Without seeing much else, I really, really just like seeing the credentials there. And he doesn't have quite the same credentials as some of these other guys, but at the same time, I can get behind it. I think he's a big dude. He knows how to play the game. And like you said, he's going to be a developmental guy, which is kind of what we're looking for on our line. We're looking for some guys to develop and grow and fill into those shoes.
And it'll happen. And the reason I like it is because he does remind me of Akeem Hicks. And I hope he can grow into Akeem Hicks. Akeem Hicks didn't start off right away as a super stud. Mm-hmm. So I really hope he can grow and progress into someone like Akeem Hicks.
Exactly. And just to go back to my what you want to call it, stereotypes. Also SEC guy. Also playing those Georgias and Alabamas and
Tennessee, Darnell Wright.
Yeah.
And that's exciting to see too, because Darnell Wright and him are gonna face each other. Maybe not so much because he's a D tackle, but they're gonna compete every day in practice. And iron sharpens iron. And at the end of the day, 2 SEC guys going against each other, they're just gonna get better and better. So
those one-on-ones are going to get nasty.
Very nasty. And they're 2 mammoths of individuals. So
yeah. All right. With our third pick, also in the second round, just a few picks later, we took Tyreek Stevenson, a cornerback out of Miami. Now, he does have an all-conference accolade. He was third team all ACC in 2022. He actually started out coming from Georgia and then transferring to Miami. That makes me ever so slightly nervous. For the only reason that Georgia obviously has a very, very big, successful, powerful defense and everything. And the only reason that I could think that somebody would want to transfer out of that is because they're not getting the playing time. So part of me is like, okay, you couldn't hack it as a corner at Georgia. Like, you had to transfer somewhere you could play. Like, just makes me ever so slightly wary of what's going on here. But once again, watching his highlights, he's a hard hitter. He knows how to get to the ball. Watching his highlights was awesome. Especially we don't need corners like crazily, like I think he'll be somewhat of a backup guy. We got a pretty solid secondary. He's got a lot of guys to like learn behind and, grow into a role once again. So I don't think he necessarily will be like a come out and start for us right away guy, but I did like what I saw from his highlight clip.
For sure. Okay. one thing, go back to what you said, couldn't hack it at Georgia. And that does make me nervous because there was a Georgia cornerback on the board when we selected Tyreek Stevenson and Keely Ringo that fell to the Philadelphia Eagles that started over Tyreek Stevenson at Georgia. So Chicago kind of passed on it. But Keely Ringo, and I'm not talking about Tyreek Stevenson here, but Keely Ringo, he's smaller corner, faster but smaller. Tyreek Stevenson, he's a thumper. I remember actually watching one game. I think they were playing Georgia Tech. And I remember he put the pressure on that quarterback. Jeff Sims, he put pressure on him all day long. And that was just at the cornerback because Miami blitzed their corners quite often.
Yeah.
I like Tyreek Stevenson.
He is a hard hitter. I saw one of them too, like you said, it was like a corner blitz, and his guy was even motioning across the formation. So it was just like fucking perfect. Like, guy's motioning, he's following the motion, coming in closer, loses no momentum as the ball snapped and just keeps coming straight to the quarterback and fucks him up. I'm like, God damn, like, what was that coordinator thinking doing that? But no, definitely, I think he's a hard hitter. I think he's going to be a good player for us. I think it's weird talking about a corner being big and nasty, but like you said, he has the size. Like, he'll be a bit of a big, nasty corner. And that's kind of what Chicago's defense is all about. Like, we are the monsters of the Midway. We should be the nastiest defense out there. So I'm with it. I like it.
And with this pick too, like, and he reminds me of Jaquan Brisker. Like, yeah. And this is another type of player like Jaquan Brisker. And we saw what Jaquan Brisker did last year. Jaquan Brisker took control of our defense. Eddie Jackson, nasty. You think of like our secondary, and they are nasty. Like, and maybe not Kyler Gordon, but everybody else pretty nasty. And I think that's why we got him. You know, the picks aren't really there. There was also another cornerback from Iowa that was still on the board, Riley Moss. But I just don't see Riley Moss fitting in Chicago. So Tyreek Stevenson, though, perfect match.
Yep. Last thing I'll say about him, it is actually his birthday today. He's turning 23 years old. So happy birthday, Tyreek. Came across that in my research there.
Nice.
Moving on to our fourth pick, round 3, pick 64, we have Zach Pickens, defensive lineman out of South Carolina. Once again, no all-conference accolades that I saw. Once again, played as a true freshman, 12 games, and he actually played for 4 years. How you said Javon Dexter came out his like junior year, or redshirt sophomore year, whatever. Pickens actually played all 4 years at South Carolina. I don't know, slight disadvantage in my head, just on the comparison field. Like, when I'm comparing the guys specifically that we drafted, like, I look at them and I'm like, okay, you played all 4 years in college instead of popping right to the NFL. You have to questionably think the guys that pop right to are a little better, maybe not as developed, but I don't know. He looked solid enough. I think he'll be good. We need some linemen. I'm with getting a few different linemen and just kind of letting them battle it out for positioning and like, hey, who's going to be better? Like, just creating that competition culture of like, hey, this isn't your spot. Like, one of you two are going to be in this spot, and we're going to let you two figure that out in practice.
For sure. Well, and we run a 4-3, so they could be at that spot. They could both be playing D tackle. But I get where you're coming from. Zach Pickens, to me, he is just another type of guy. He actually ran the fastest 40. So, like, we went with the big mammoth with Gervin Dexter. Well, and then we go with the fastest defensive tackle on the board. And, you know, we see which one fits what Matt Eberflus wants to do as a defensive coach and with Chicago. And I think that's smart. You take the fastest D tackle and you take the biggest D tackle and you see, okay, what do I want to work with? And I think he actually fits Chicago's system at a 4-3. He ran a 4-3 at South Carolina. So I think, and another SEC guy, like you mentioned, this just comes up. Like, we took so many SEC defensive caliber players, and I like that because you want the best out of the best. And I think Ryan Poles knows that.
Well, and another thing, too, with like having a big mammoth and then having the fastest tackle there is, I don't think it necessarily has to be which one fits in better. Like you said, they can both play. We can have like big boy nose tackle line up in a shade or even a 2-eye. Like, you know, he can be closer to the center. And then we can have our fastest guy more out in a 3 technique, just kind of speeding around the edge, or maybe he's a twist guy. He twists with the end a lot. Like, who knows? Like, I think there is reason to believe that having both of them in at the same time could be awesome.
Yeah, and you got to think, like, they were picked 2 rounds apart. Like, usually you don't see that from the same position. And so Ryan Poles has a plan. Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus both know how they want this team to be ran, and they're going to fill this out until they get what they want. And I think we're going to see a lot of things that they've been building the last 2 years be prevalent this year.
Definitely. I know we were talking about it earlier, but just kind of going through these guys, there were a few different picks at least that we were kind of questioning, like, what is Poles doing? Like, is this the right way to go? Like, who is this guy? But that's kind of the hopes, isn't it? Like, hey, this isn't some big fantasized, like, high expectation guy. This is like some low do your job worker, something. This is an undervalued guy that Poles sees the value in that no one else can see. That's what we want from him. That's why we hired Poles. We want him to see the things that other GMs aren't seeing. So I'm just hoping that he's seeing things in all these guys that is just like blind to most of us right now.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight a couple of players that Poles has identified in the past when he was a Kansas City Chief. He identified Travis Kelce in the 3rd round. He identified Tyreek Hill in the 5th round. He identified these guys. He identified talent on the offense and their middle linebacker, forgot his name. I don't remember what round, but like there's so many guys that he identified that's why he's the general manager of Chicago, because he was the head of scouting in Kansas City. There's a reason he built the Kansas City teams. Ian Cunningham, our assistant general manager, built the Philadelphia Eagles teams. They know what they're doing when they're building talent. I'm just saying.
So we got to sit back, we got to trust him, and we got to be excited. But next pick number 5, round 4, pick 115. We took Rashawn Johnson, running back out of Texas. Obviously, I did not say Bijan. He is the backup to Bijan Robinson. But hey, when you have an absolute number 1 overall stud like that, the backup, you got to think, is still going to be pretty good. Only thing I really found about him, or accolade I could give him, not even an accolade, just kind of something I thought was interesting. He actually started out as a quarterback. Mm-hmm. He was a quarterback all through high school, started out as that in college, but quickly turned into a running back after I think he dealt with some injury. And at his high school, he actually holds the all-time passing record and is second for like the all-time rusher. I think he had 4,900 yards in his career in high school, rushing as a quarterback. So I don't know. In my head, I was kind of like, oh, we brought in another quarterback to run the ball for us. Like, interesting. Yeah.
Well, he is 6'2" and 235 pounds. This guy is massive for a running back. I like this move a lot, man. Yeah, I think it's intriguing that he started off as a quarterback in Texas. That is cool. I always like when players actually like start off like on the defensive side and become a running back, or vice versa, you know. But yeah, who cares that he was the backup for Bijan Robinson? I know he's not going to have the stats. Like his senior year, he had 554 yards rushing. Usually, you don't get drafted when you have 554 yards rushing. But the thing is, that's because Bijan got all the carries. This dude, literally, he had that on 93 carries. 500, that average is 9.1 yards per average, which is insane. That's a first down every time he touches the ball almost. The cool thing with Rashawn Johnson, too, that we're getting is he has less miles. Because guess what? He wasn't ran as hard in college. He has less miles. He's coming in with fresh legs. He's going to compete. He is 22 years old, and usually running backs like good running backs usually last about 8 years. But when you come in and you didn't play in college football as much as you should have, and he could have transferred. He could have went to a smaller school and transferred, but he stuck it out at Texas. And look, he still got drafted in the 4th round by the Chicago Bears. And I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be taking Khalil Herbert's spot. I hate to say it, but I think mid-season, Rashawn Johnson is the Chicago Bears starting running back.
I had the same thoughts after watching him a little bit. I was kind of like, okay, I know we got a couple of backs already. Deontay Foreman,
Khalil Herbert, and then the kid from Seattle. But yeah.
But yeah, I was mainly thinking of Foreman and Herbert, but Watching his highlights or like seeing him kind of like looking at his bio and whatnot, I was like, I don't know if we drafted this guy to be our kind of third string backup. I mean, fourth round pick is not crazy high or anything. Like we got a couple decent running backs. But yeah, I think he could easily come in and kind of be that 1-2 punch with Foreman and then hit. And like you said, he is a bigger guy too. Like he could easily be that kind of power down back that just you put down on a 4th and 1 or, a 3rd and goal, some shit. Just the guy that you want to put in, run the ball up the middle and plow some guys. Because that's what a lot of I saw of him. That was the one thing I think I really, really liked about his highlights is there was a lot of just lowering the shoulder, pushing dudes over and like getting another 3, 4, 5 yards just by being an animal out there.
Yeah, massive running back. And I think this might go down as Ryan Pohl's best pick of the draft.
I think so too. Moving into our second 4th round pick, pick number 133, we took Tyler Scott, a wide receiver out of Cincinnati. He was second team All AAC in 2022, this past season. Yeah, I don't know how much to necessarily say about him, but I think he's decent enough. We got a pretty nice receiver room anymore. So I don't think Tyler Scott necessarily comes in and starts at all. I don't know if he comes in and plays at all. He might be a real heavy rotate. I say heavy or maybe light rotational guy is the word to use. Like he'll fill in kind of here and there as need be, get some reps, kind of work it out. But I think we're sitting pretty good at receiver. I think we're just trying to think a little bit long term and trying to bring in another guy to just have some rotational backups should anything happen here.
Yeah, no, I like Tyler Scott. Like he was Desmond Ritter's go-to receiver back in 2021 and 2020. Yeah, 2021, 2020. I really like him. He didn't have over 1,000 yards receiving in college, which is like, okay, but he was the number 1 receiver this year for Cincinnati. They had a little bit of a down year. But the thing I think of with Tyler Scott is he's a replacement for Darnell Mooney in about 2 years. He's same size, about 5'11". He's a burner. And I think if he performs well in preseason OTAs, I think he could be competing for Mooney's spot. Now that we have DJ Moore, we have Chase Claypool, Mooney's kind of back to what he should be as a third guy, but he hasn't performed since 2-3 years ago. And so It's like, okay, maybe they brought him in specifically for that spot because, St. Brown is more of that backup to Chase Claypool. And then, we have other receivers at other positions that Velus Jones is also going to compete with Darnell Mooney and Tyler Scott as that burner type guy. We didn't really see what we liked from Velus Jones last year. I think, maybe this is oh crap, we missed on Velus Jones. Let's see what Tyler Scott has to offer. Because I think Darnell Mooney and Ryan Poles, they're not sweet on each other. And I do think, at some point, Darnell Mooney will be moving on from Chicago.
And I'm glad you brought up Velus Jones because that was a thought I had actually. We were talking about burners and 40 times while I was watching the highlights because a part of me realized I'm like, it's hard to watch highlights of receivers because they're not in the frame most of the highlight. Like you're trying to watch a highlight of these guys and it's like, okay, where is he? Oh, there he is. He just caught the ball. Like I want to see his moves off the line. I want to see like, does he make a double, triple move? I want to see him like get to the open spot. I feel like you can't see enough of them putting in the pre-effort before seeing them just like all of a sudden they're in a spot catching the ball and like starting to run away from a corner. It's like, okay, that didn't tell me much about this guy. Like, great. He looks like he's running faster in the corner chasing him. That's cool. But like, I want to see what else he's got. And another super huge underrated thing with watching receiver highlights. And I tell this to every like kid that's like a sophomore or junior that reaches out to me like, oh, here's my highlights. Like, hey, how can I improve it or whatever? As a receiver, show some blocking. I want to see you block somebody. I want to see you crack a linebacker. I want to see you, hold a safety in place for a good 3-second count or some shit. Like, I think that is such an underrated value in like a run game or some sort of screen or something. Just like, I want to see you be able to go out and block somebody, not just catch a ball and run away. Like we talked about all these burners being so great at receiver. Like that's cool and all, but can burners block? our burner is going to help Foreman. Our burner is going to help who we just drafted, Rashawn Johnson.
Yeah.
No, like we need some Chase Claypools who, once again, nasty guy that's going to go crack a linebacker.
Well, and I wouldn't even say Chase Claypool. I would say that's why St. Brown's still a Chicago Bear. 6'5", 230. Like I remember EQ. I'm going to call him EQ. But EQ last year, he literally was like our probably best run blocking wide receiver. And that's why I think he's still a Bear. It is very important to have a receiver. So like the Tyler Scott draft pick, it's like, it's cool and all, but like, come on, guys. Like, you know, like we have two burners on our roster. This is the kind of pick I don't like from Ryan Poles.
And this is one of those pick, like we talked about earlier, not a huge fan, but hey, maybe Tyler Scott becomes our ex receiver and just fucking is a stud in a year or two. And we're all like, well, shit.
Stupid.
Poles must have known something we didn't because he just went and got, he could be our Tyreek Hill. I mean,
no kidding. Yeah. Like, I mean, here we are judging Ryan Poles on a wide receiver when he's the one that found Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman. The list can go on.
And you said Hill was picked in what round again?
The 5th round.
This was round 4.
Out of Western Alabama. Tyreek Hill's went to Western Alabama. And found him in round 5. There it is.
So, yeah, there you have it. Next pick we've got was our 5th round pick 148. We took Noah Sewell. Is that how you say that?
Noah Sewell. And
Sewell.
He's the younger brother of the Detroit Lions tackle. Sewell.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He is a linebacker out of Oregon. This is actually one of my favorites to as I was going through these guys' accolades and everything. This one actually made me more reassured than any other guy just because he was Pac-12 Defensive Freshman of the Year in 2020. He was first team All Pac-12 in 2021, and he was second team All Pac-12 in 2022. Obviously, that is Pac-12, so that's not quite the same. I'll take Darnell Wright's first team All SEC over, all of those combined. But at the same time, for being a 5th round guy, I like what I'm seeing from that.
For sure. Yeah, no, Penei Sewell, his brother is the Detroit Lion. But yeah, Noah Sewell, like, he had a very successful career, like, especially in 2021, like 114 total tackles, 1 pick. He had 6 sacks. Like, that's a lot coming from this kid. And yeah, he had a down year in 2022, but we've talked about this so many times. Down years, like sometimes they come back for their senior year and it's not the right choice. I get it. Like Brock Purdy, you can name so many players that have and their draft stock tanked. Well, Noah Sewell, that's similar. If he would have came out last year, he probably been a 1st, 2nd round pick. Like they even talked about him competing with Jack Campbell during the combine. About him, he didn't have as great of a combine as Jack Campbell did, and that's why he kind of fell to the 5th round. I think he's going to compete.
Yeah, all that is just like even more exciting to me. Like, hey, you're telling me this dude's draft stock drops because he played an extra year, he maybe shouldn't have because he didn't do the greatest at the combine, and now we got him in the 5th round? Steal. That's a steal right there. Like, that's what I love. I'm like, okay, this guy, I think, could come in, do something big, and he could be that, like we're talking about Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill taken in later rounds, but turns out to be like some of the best in the league. This could be one of those guys that ends up being one of the best linebackers in the league that we got in the 5th round because Poles knows what he's doing. We just got to trust in Poles. For
sure. Well, and with you saying that and everything with that, like, what do we do with Jack Sanborn? Like we found Jack Sanborn last year as an undrafted free agent. He was solid. We also brought in Tremaine Edmonds. We also brought in TJ Edwards from Philadelphia. So we got linebackers now. Like where does Noah Sewell play in with Jack Sanborn and all these other guys?
That is a good question. And they're all fairly similar aged, aren't they? Yeah, like none of them are like aging out.
Well, Edmonds is the oldest, maybe at 25, 26.
Yeah.
They're all young. Like, and so like, it's like, okay, compete, see who's going to be the best. The thing is, like, I think Noah Sewell might take out Jack Sanborn, and I like Jack Sanborn. I mean, maybe we only like Jack Sanborn because he came in right after we traded away Roquan Smith, and he wasn't terrible. Maybe that's why.
I think that's completely why. Jack Sanborn was a great middle linebacker for us that just no one was really expecting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if I should say great. No one was expecting him to be successful as a middle linebacker in the league, and he did surprisingly well. I think his performance with the Bears was surprising, and he did a good job. He didn't give up anything big, but I think you're right. I think Noah Swell comes in and takes his spot and does something big with it. I like Jack Sanborn is a great put in and hold the place guy. I think he's a little bit of a backup for us at
He's
least.
undersized.
With the lineup we have, he's definitely a little bit of a backup guy. I think Noah is going to be the guy that actually comes in and, replaces Roquan, like truly does what Roquan was supposed to do. And yeah, Jack Sanborn, I'd like him if he stuck around for a backup, or if he goes somewhere else and, goes and starts. Like I'm happy for him. Like he did a good job that no one expected him to do. So, he's a success.
Yeah, and the other thing with this Noel Sewell and Penei Sewell, what is up with the Bears and the Lions having brothers? Because not even just Noel Sewell and Penei Sewell, now it's also St. Brown and Amon St. Brown. Like, okay, what's going on? Like, we're sharing brothers now. It's different. It's weird, but I'm all for it.
It's because the Bears and the Lions have a brotherhood of being terrorized by the Packers
and the
for
Vikings.
so long.
Yeah, Packers and the Vikings for so long that we're like, okay, it's our time. Because like we've even mentioned this, like we could see in the next few years that it's going to be the Bears and the Lions competing for the next couple of years, which is fine. Like that's cool. But yeah, the brotherhoods, it's kind of cool to see.
It is. All right, getting into our next pick here, another 5th round pick 165. We took Terrell Smith. Defensive back out of Minnesota. I think he's a corner.
Yeah.
I think he can play either or though. Yeah, corner. I don't know why I put DB, habit. But one accolade I found for him is he was an honorable mention for all Big Ten in 2022. So he got an honorable mention. That's something. It's Big Ten, so it's right there behind the SEC football wise. The only thing that makes me a little sketched out or a little nervous about him. He actually came in real hot as a freshman. He was a freshman starter real early in his career, and then immediately became a backup his sophomore year and actually ended up redshirting his junior year. And then finally came back out his senior year after, I forget what his name was. His replacement moved on to the draft. He had one more senior year to, show what he's got. And we did draft him, which is cool, but he's definitely a very backup kind of guy in my head.
Yeah, the only thing I got on Terrell Smith is that he's a bigger size corner. He's 6'1", 215 pounds, and similar build and similar style to Tyreek Stevenson. Like Tyreek Stevenson, 6'2", 210. And so like I see where Ryan Poles wants. He wants those bigger, lengthy cornerbacks to compete. He'd rather have that than speed cornerbacks, which I'm all for because I think you're right. Like we did have speed cornerbacks back a couple of years back, Kyler Fuller, and those type of guys, they were speed corners. But when it comes to a 50-50 ball in the back of the end zone, you're getting mossed every single time. And you kind of think of like the receivers we do have in our conference, Justin Jefferson, 6'4". Like you think of TJ Hawkinson for the Vikings, tight end. I mean, you just think of that style and those receivers, and it's like, okay, I do want a bigger corner.
Yeah, and like speed is important, don't get me wrong, but as long as you are fast enough, like who cares if you're the fastest?
Yeah, Richard Sherman made a Hall of Fame career on being fast enough. Richard Sherman was 6'2", and like at that time, no one had a cornerback that was above 6 foot. And he kind of like changed the game for cornerbacks for the Seattle Seahawks. And he was a Hall of Fame cornerback. So this is kind of like, okay, the Richard Sherman effect. And I'm all here for it.
Yeah. So I can get behind it. I think it's definitely, and I mean, we're late in the 5th round. So obviously we're not picking up, there's no studs out here anymore. So, who knows what's happening, but I can see it as a decent long-term potential, once again, trying to build up that reputable defense for the Bears, big, nasty in every position. typically you think of linemen when you think of the word nasty, but you want a 6'1", 6'2" corner who's going to be big and a hard hitter. Like, that's a big, nasty guy.
Yep.
I will say there was one highlight of his on his reel going against the Iowa Hawkeyes, and he did murder Petrus. So that was just, I don't know how it made me feel to watch exactly, but I did watch it. That's all I'll say.
Nice.
All right. Moving into the last round of this draft, we had 2 7th-round picks as well. With the first pick of the 7th round that we had, pick number 218, we took Travis Bell, defensive lineman out of Kennesaw State. That is an FCS school. He was second team All Big South in 2021, so not this past season, but the season before. And like I said, that is an FCS conference. So, I mean, take that as it.
Yeah, Kennesaw State. Travis Bell, this is going to be definitely a developmental guy. Let's just be honest. 6'1", 280. He wasn't even invited to the Combine. He wasn't invited to the East Shrine game or the Senior Bowl. So I don't know where Ryan Poles kind of got the scouting information off this guy, but this happens. This happens. Like we talked about Tyreek Hill. He came out of Western Alabama. Like, and that's an FCS school. Like Kennesaw State, FCS school, defensive tackle. Like, and I think this just adds, he's here for depth. He's here for depth reasons, and maybe he turns out to be something special. Who knows?
I can definitely understand the move of taking a guy for depth, but not wanting your depth guy to have an ego of starting mentality. Kind of like we were talking about with Noah Swell and all of our other linebackers that we got. Like, yeah, there's going to be a bit of an ego battle there because they all equally should maybe be out on that field. I think there is something to say for having some depth with a guy that, like, yeah, I'm the third string option, or like I'm the backup last minute guy. Like, I'm just here to be here. But like you said too, he could potentially grow into something huge. He could be awesome for us. Maybe Poles see something that's going to be developmental. Maybe he'll be a starter in 3, 4, 5 years or something. Like, who knows? I do support seeing guys from smaller divisions or lower level schools going into the draft. It is exciting to see. I like seeing those like FCS or like, oh, a Division II guy like got drafted. Like, oh, that's exciting. Let's see what he's got. I'm just weary because it's the Bears.
Yep.
You know, like, oh, we're drafting FCS guy, and not even like the biggest all-star, like first conference, like huge, like best player in FCS guy. Like he's there.
Yes, second team.
Like
last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. It's definitely going to be interesting. That's for sure. I don't know how to take this pick. I mean, but I think, he might just not even make it through OTAs in preseason, because 7th-round picks, that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. Speaking of 7th-round picks, our last pick in this draft, round 7, pick number 258, we took Kendall Williamson, defensive back out of Stanford. I think also a corner. I kept writing DB. I need to specify. But only thing I really found for him is he played as a freshman 10 games. He started one of them. He was all academic conference, if that matters at all to us, which I don't think it really does. A lot of these guys also had all academic conferences. I just didn't mention any of them because who cares? Like, your career is playing football now. I really don't care if you were all academic.
Yeah.
But yeah, once again, kind of a backup guy. Not a lot to say about. Even just watching his highlights, I don't think there was anything that was crazy to me about him that I'm like, oh yeah, like Kendall Williamson is going to be, an option. What do you think?
I think he's just a camp guy. I think he'll go in. I think he'll be cut. He'll be on the practice squad for a couple of years, and he'll be out of the league in a couple of years. Just 7th-round picks, man. Sometimes they turn out, sometimes they don't, and sometimes they're great special team players or utility players. So I don't really got much to say about this guy.
I will say one more thing about him. According to Stanford's roster or like historic card for him, he supposedly lost an inch his graduate year.
Nice.
He was listed at 6'1", his freshman through senior year, and then his 1/5 year that he played, his graduate year, he was listed at 6 foot flat. So I don't know if there was a new coach doing the measurements or if he just lost an inch. Maybe he got a haircut. No idea. But I just thought that was interesting to see, like, oh, his height went down? What?
Yeah, that is weird. That is weird to see. It's always a question mark with these guys. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we will see. But that wraps up the Bears draft recap. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And this, yeah, I don't know what much else to say. We will see you guys again sometime late June. We'll make a post. We'll post on Instagram or TikTok or something. We'll let you guys know when the episode's out. It'll probably be that last week of June area. We'll talk about who won the NBA championship. We'll talk about who won the Stanley Cup. We'll give you a big old recap of everything that's happened since then.
Yeah, yeah, we'll see you at the end of the June, guys. So I guess the only thing I got to say is bear down.